Henry sent in an email asking about how does he improve the quality of his workout because he's kind of hit a stalemate on performance. And I wanted to elaborate on this question and put it in a video format. This one may be a little bit long, so please stick with me because you're going to see that there's several components that need to be looked at simultaneously, so please stick with me. If you follow me for any period of time, you know I'm a big advocate and a user of the Garmin platform. If you're using the connect.garmin.com on the computer or you're using the Garmin app on your phone, I want you to stop and think about a couple things. First and foremost, what is the purpose of your workout that you're doing today? So if you would take a moment, you may have already downloaded this. If you haven't, please take advantage of this opportunity. In the description box below, I have a link in our resource page for our heart rate spreadsheet. And I would encourage you to please utilize that. Because what I'm going to talk about in this video is what is the purpose of your workout? Well, the purpose of the workout needs to be driven by your actual heart rate intensity. Take a look at the screen right here. This is a screenshot of our heart rate spreadsheet, and you'll notice there's zone 1 through 5. Zone 1, we call that the aerobic side. Zone 1 is the low intensity aerobic side. Zone 5 is going to be your anaerobic threshold. That's going to be the very top end sprint speed. Now let's go back to what the purpose of your workout is. If you're trying to improve aerobic capacity, if your goal is to burn unwanted body fat, if your goal is to build muscular power, then you need to be on the lower end of the spectrum, maybe zone 1 no higher than zone 2. Well, what number should you stay in? Now, before you send me a nasty message below, and I say that politely, when I say muscular power, you could be doing a seated hill repeat on a bicycle. You can do an uphill rolling hill run and still stay aerobic. You just have to slow your pace down. But if you're putting tensile strength on the tissue trying to build raw power, you can still do that aerobically. Now, when we get into zones 3 and above, you need to know where does that heart rate even begin? And that's why the heart rate spreadsheet, in my opinion, is an incredible resource tool for you because it increases the effectiveness and the productivity of your workouts. So for example, if you're telling me in your sport you need to have better sprint speed, you got to come out of the block super hard, you've got to try to set the pace, right? Well, let's assume that's right at your anaerobic threshold. Maybe it's right at your lactate tolerance. But you know that if you go across that fine line and you go anaerobic, you're going to be forced to slow down, hence the word anaerobic. You're working without the presence of oxygen. Well, you can't continue to accelerate and pull away from everybody if you're anaerobic. It's just metabolically not possible, which is where these heart rate spreadsheets, these heart rate zones become even more important. By looking at your average and your max heart rate from your last competition, you know where you pretty much compete and feel competitive. So in training, you can get right up against the edge of that, become a little bit more familiar. That's where we look at the word lactate tolerance. That tolerance can be improved. It can be enhanced. The question is, how do you know that you haven't crossed the threshold? And again, I just want to clarify what we're saying here. If you go beyond that threshold and you blow up, you're going to have to slow down. That's not teaching you how to get that top end speed that you're looking for. If you've got a quantified number and you know you can get right on the cusp of that, your body gets familiar with delivering oxygen. Make sure that you have enough calories so you're burning sugar efficiently. Remember what we've talked about in a previous video. As you bring, please take a look at the screen right now. You see, this is a very important illustration that as you bring the intensity up, you notice how you're burning progressively more and more sugar and less stored fat. Now this is going to be really important because if you look at the characteristics of your race and you know that you need to be right at that sub-threshold effort, it's incredibly powerful to be able to look down at a watch and know, just like you're driving your vehicle, you know when you're in that sweet spot. If you come into a headwind or you come into an obstacle that's going to require your heart rate to go up because you're using more of your muscles, the more muscle you use, the more oxygen demands, the higher the heart rate goes up. You might have to adjust your speed a little bit, but that's okay. You're adjusting for the duration of your race to be strong all the way to the finish. I always want my clients to be faster than they started. Now let's come back to the heart rate spreadsheet. When you're dealing with heat and humidity, and if there's an influence in the heart rate number, it's reflecting it is reflecting the elements that you're dealing with. So when somebody says you don't want to race with a heart rate monitor because it's going to give you distorted numbers, I have to politely disagree. And I can tell you that there have been many times my athletes have destroyed people who don't train with the heart rate monitor because they went off of their gut, and unfortunately the heat, the humidity, the elements just drained their tank so quickly. Well, as I have said in previous videos, and I'll reiterate it again here, you wouldn't drive your truck, you wouldn't drive your vehicle from point A to point B, let's say it's a 4-day drive, and just guesstimate speed, temperature of your vehicle, and gas mileage. And that's where the heart rate monitor really does come in. And despite what other people like to say, the heart rate monitor does factor in heat and humidity. It does factor in dehydration in the human body. As you dehydrate, your heart rate's going to go up higher and higher. So stop and think about this. If you're becoming dehydrated and you're not paying attention to heart rate and you start to see your pace fall off, what are you going to do? You're going to lean into it and try to go faster, which only depletes you quicker, dehydrates you quicker, overheats you quicker. You see the irony of this? If you think about it in mechanical terms, if a motor is overheating and you start calling it names and tell it to push through, is that really going to change the mechanical components? No. Just like the heart rate monitor. If you're becoming dehydrated, you're going to be going at a slower speed at a higher heart rate because the circumference size of the blood, the cell membrane itself is getting dehydrated, so it shrinks, carries less oxygen, so you're going slower at a higher heart rate. Heart rate monitor plays a tremendous role in regards to all of this. So when you look at your workout, ask yourself, are you in the right intensity zones specific to what you're training for? If you're working with a heart rate monitor, do you have your up-to-date ranges from zone 1 to 5? We have it in the resource area below. If you're looking to get a Garmin, I have a link to my Amazon store. We've put together a relationship. We've been approached by both Amazon and Garmin, and we're glad that this is available to you guys. Please take a look at that link in the description box as well below. Great question. I want to thank you guys for giving me the time. I know this video is a little bit longer than most, but again, I get really frustrated when people don't set the entire context. They say, oh, don't train with a heart rate monitor, or don't do this or don't do that. What is the purpose of your workout? Are you training at the right intensities, influencing heat, humidity, and dehydration? If you happen to have a question or want something clarified, we're answering a question every single day. Please do so by sending me an email at contact@coachrob.com. Cannot thank you guys enough for supporting these videos. Thank you for giving me time yet again here today, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.